You're listening to Country Rockin' with Jay Griffin.
Who didn't see that coming a mile away, huh?
The home of all things country and southern rock.
All right.
I'm really thrilled this week to be able to introduce this artist to you. I'm really buzzing. I'd like to welcome to my show one former half of Brother Phelps and the frontman of the Kentucky Headhunters, Mr. Doug Phelps. Doug, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Jay. Appreciate you having me, man.
It's been a long time coming. We first touched base back in, I think it was later end of last year. And you've been a busy man. I've been a busy man. We've had COVID and stuff like that. So it's taken a long time coming, but it's I'm really appreciative. It's great to have you on.
Well, it did take a little while. I think it was towards the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, and you know, that's when it all kind of hit the fan, so to speak. So glad to be here finally.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how has this crazy last 18 months we've had with COVID, lockdown and stuff like that? How have you coped with that, and what have you done to keep yourself occupied, busy? Have you done stuff for the band, or have you just kicked back and enjoy family time?
Well, it's been really a lot of both. The very beginning of it was it I felt like my brain was turned into mush, you know, because it was so strange for all the dates to be canceled or moved, and they kept canceling and moving, and the uncertainty of what was going on, we would move dates to, you know, a few months later, and then they would get canceled, moved. So those first 2 or 3 months were confusing. Obviously, it was just, we were here at the house. I still, got out and took care of business, whatever needed to be done. But what ended up happening is the positive of it was definitely a lot of family time. For the past 10 years, I've had my daughter, son-in-law, and 4 grandbabies that lived with us. And so that was, it was a whole lot more time with them, obviously, the grandkids. They just finally got their first place, their first house. They moved out about 4 weeks ago. So we are, all of a sudden, our house is really quiet. So that's a little bit of a change currently, but back then it was family time. It was also, Lord have mercy, we worked on the house. We worked outside. We trimmed the bushes and hedges and added on to our little outside area in the backyard there. Just all kinds of cleaned out the garage. I went through the music room. It was like I was like, well, I need to go back to work so I can get some rest. Because out there on the road, there's a pace, there's a daily routine. We almost can always get enough sleep, and with them grandbabies around here and everything else going on, it was pretty busy. So anyway, it was a little bit of both. It was some great times. It was great family time, but of course, missed being on the road and with my brothers, my musical brothers, and making music. But finally, one thing that did happen, March of last year was going to be our slower month, and everything else from there was going to be busy. And we were overdue to go in and record a new record. So that's when we were going to start the new record that we now finally have finished. So that all got postponed as well. So we're finally able to go in this March. And because our dates from last year that moved to the beginning of this year, mm-hmm. We did 2 or 3 early, and then all the rest of them moved to June, first part of June and beyond. And so far, those dates have stayed intact, and we've been very busy since the beginning of June. So.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. It's nice to hear that you're back on the road and enjoying that. We'll touch on that again a bit later.
Okay.
Let's go back to the beginning for you. So how did your love for music and getting involved in music start for you? And how old do you think you was back then?
Oh, Lord. The Phelps side of the family, my dad has played. Still, he's 92. He's still alive, still kicking, doing good. But he's a minister, so I was born and raised in church. So I was playing guitar early on, acoustic guitar. I started learning music, how to play guitar when I was 5. Acoustic guitar and piano, and it was just my grandmother, grandfather Phelps. great uncles, everybody played. In other words, it was in the genes, in the DNA, and everybody just had that. Nobody necessarily read music or whatever, but it was just a natural talent that's I guess been in our line, and it occurred with me and my brother as well. But yeah, I started really early. Taught myself to play guitar. Dad taught me a few chords in the beginning, but then I just started listening to the Beatles, of course, and the Stones and Zeppelin and all those, but certainly the Beatles early on. And, trying to figure out how to play that on acoustic guitar. That was really my main thing in the beginning. At 10 years old, my uncle Doug Phelps, who was the first really professional musician who went out and made his living playing music, which was a huge influence on me. He was a bass player, could play everything, but he was mainly a bass player. So he gave me my first bass guitar. At 10 years old, I was still playing in church, and then I started having little 3-piece folk rock bands and southern rock bands and stuff like that through school. So, but I still have that old '66 jazz bass that he gave me to this day. So that really was just in the family, and it just it was a natural progression for me.
Sure. Now, when we spoke about meeting up, at one point we was going to get together, but you had to go on a bit of a trip to collect a bass guitar. Now, enlighten me on that, because I found it quite interesting, because you had to go on quite a bit of a journey to go and get it.
Yes. Now, are we talking about my uncle's last bass that he played?
Yeah, I believe that's what it was. Yeah.
The Uncle Dub. Yes, it was the bass that he played for 30 years. It was an early 70s P bass, Fender P bass, and it looked like it'd been set on fire and maybe hooked a chain to it and drug it behind a truck. It's the ugliest Fender bass you'll ever see in your life. But it's like a masterpiece, and it's just 30 years of his history of playing. Yeah, he's still alive, but unfortunately a few years back he had a few mini strokes, and he kind of lost his ability to play. So it belonged to him while he played it, but it was actually, the owner of it was a guy named J.R. Rogers, who has a music shop, and he had his own band, and Uncle Doug played for him for quite a while. So it reverted back to J.R. And Dad heard an advertisement one day. Now, this is Northeast Arkansas, Southeast Missouri area where I grew up originally. J.R. was having a sale on a lot of his vintage instruments, and I thought, I don't want that bass guitar to get away. So I contacted him, and we ended up working out a deal. I traded a bunch of instruments for him. This was during our downtime. We weren't working, but JR worked with me on it and knew that I wanted Uncle's bass. So finally got it worked out. Drove to Arkansas with a gaggle of my guitars to make the trade, and I actually used it on the new record. There's 2 or 3 tracks that I used it on our current album that'll be out in October. Yeah,
that's really cool. That's really cool. So before you joined the Headhunters, was there a band in between it, or was there many bands, or how did that come about?
Well, there was a keyboard player, a friend of mine, that we did kind of a duo thing together. I had a little 3-piece. I wanted to call it kind of a folk rock band in middle school. In high school, I played with some older fellas that it was pretty much a straight up Southern rock band. And this would have been mid to late 70s when I graduated in 79. And we played out on ironically, the guy that owned the property was a farmer's son, and they had an old farmhouse on the river, on the St. Francis River. That was what we called our practice house or jam house. Same time, Richard and Fred and Greg and their other cousin Anthony, they had the old practice house on their farm that they had, their grandmother bought a parcel of land and gave them this old farmhouse back in the late 60s. And that was their practice house, which, what we call it to this day, our practice house. But I was doing the same thing in Arkansas, and of course I hadn't even met them guys yet. Had not even made my way over. So those were, and then of course still played in church, quite a bit until I moved over to Nashville in '81.
Cool. So how did joining the Headhunters come about for you? How did all that begin for you?
Well, the keyboard player friend I mentioned, Craig Morris, he ended up, we went to college together, first year of college, we were roommates. There was a traveling audition company that were auditioning people for Opryland, Opryland here in Nashville. They're, when it was still a theme park, music shows and lots of rides and stuff like that, when it was just the theme park. Craig auditioned for this little traveling audition group and got a gig in the 50s show at Opryland. This was the summer of '81. I was still in college. I was actually, I was going in to be a coach. I played the two passions I've always had and been pretty good at was sports and music. So from the little old Boot Hill area over there, which is a lot of farmland, small communities, I figured, I can be a coach and a teacher, and I'll always be able to play music. But I didn't, I always hoped that I could play music for my living and play sports for fun. So anyway, Craig called me up in October of '81 and said that, that somebody he had met out there provided him an audition for a country artist by the name of Ronnie McDowell. And those who might know Ronnie, he had a huge hit with The King Is Gone in '77, which he can sound just like Elvis if he wants to. And the Kurt Russell Elvis movie and a lot of the other Elvis movies that's been filmed since that early one with Kurt, that's Ronnie singing all those parts. People think it's Elvis, but it's Ronnie. But he had his own separate country career and had 15 or 20 top 10 records and some #1 records. So he was a pretty large, pretty huge country artist at the time. Craig got the job. Ronnie was looking for a bass player and, another vocalist to sing background harmonies. And Craig asked if I was interested. I'm a 20-year-old kid in college in Northeast Arkansas. Yeah, I'm interested. So I drove over and auditioned for Ronnie. And it just so happened the same day I auditioned, Greg Martin, our current, Headhunter legend, Greg Martin, guitar player, Richard and Fred and them, their Itchy Brother thing had come close to a couple deals and over the years, and they just, neither one worked out. So they had finally split up around '80, and Greg knew the horn player. Ronnie had a utility guy that played horn and saxophone and trumpet, whatever, and a guy named Joe Getson. He was leaving, and Ronnie wanted to add a second guitar. So he auditioned the same day I did, and we both got the gig. So that's how I first met Greg. And shortly thereafter, met Richard and Fred, because they would still get together occasionally to do something. But around '85, they really got an itch to want to put something back together again. Their other Richard and Fred's other cousin, Anthony Kenny, had just gotten married, had a baby on the way, and he wasn't interested in doing it at the time. So they'd already met me. Greg said, I'll just bring Doug up, we'll jam, have a good time, see what happens. So March of '86, the four of us that are still doing it to this day formed the Headhunters. And of course, we brought my brother in sometime later, and he is on the first two records, but the original founding members are still doing it to this day. And that's kind of how those paths converged and how we came together and recorded. We've had a friend, a banking guy that loved music and gave us $4,500 to go in and record some music. And it just so happened that was, I think, in latter part of '88, we recorded Picking on Nashville for $4,500, and started pitching it around, and it got signed, and then it took off. So it's kind of crazy.
Great stuff. So whose idea was it to bring your brother Ricky in?
Well, it was not really ever intended that way. Ricky had moved over. He'd moved out to Arizona from the southeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas area after high school, and had a bluegrass band out there that was pretty popular and played quite a few states, regions, quite a few areas out there. Kind of one of the bigger fish in a smaller pond, And little brother, we're 7 years difference, so we never played together, sang together, nothing growing up because there's so much age difference. Yeah. But a little side note to that, he would every year for Christmas he would sit down with a boombox and record just him and acoustic guitars, either songs he's written or cover songs that he liked performing, whatever. And I'd sit there and listen to those songs and sing harmony with him, all for years. Did that for years. Of course, he didn't know it, but so in a sense, we did perform together in that respect, or sing together. But anyway, he had moved over here in '82 to see what little brother was doing, because I was out on the road. And, when you come to Nashville, it doesn't matter how big a fish you are in any other pond. You come here, you get in line, and there's 100 in front of you that can do just what you can do, and is good or better. A lot of talent in this area. So he beat and banged around, and really never got. I mean, he played, but he never really got much going. So he got out of the music business, and was working just north of here, north of Nashville, at a company that they made air filters for air conditioners and such. But the owner was an entrepreneur guy. He had a huge collection of beer and soda memorabilia, plus other things as well. And so Paul had hired Ricky to kind of oversee that portion of his business. And so it was creative and it was fun. Ricky enjoyed it. But the whole thing was, I kept inviting him, come up, man, to the practice house and just check out what we're doing. There was no intention of saying, hey, you need to join the band or anything like that. I just wanted Big Brother to come see what little brother was doing. We was having a ball up there, having a great time. And so finally one day he did. He came up, and the room, we said, hey man, set in, let's sing something. So we tore into Honky Tonk Blues by Hank Sr. and had this version that come out, and he'd come up there and sing, and Richard likes to say the room went neon. It went electric, man. And we went, oh, okay, I see. Two sets of brothers and a cousin, and his harmonies are good. And I mean, pretty much we asked him to join, pretty much immediately. And that's kind of how that all kind of came about as well. But I always go back to the fact that, and it was great. It was wonderful. He was on the first two records, and a chance for us to actually, play together for the first time, and a dream come true for me, because I always wanted to be in a band. I never wanted to be a solo thing. Who knows, one of these days, maybe I'll do something like that. But I'm 60 years old, I hadn't done it yet. So, I always wanted to be in the band. The Beatles were such an influence on us, and the Stones and Zeppelin and Creedence, and list goes on and on, the stuff we were listening to back then.
That's an interesting story. That's a great story. Now, I've asked you before we spoke to choose 3 tracks for me for me to play from the show. Now, the first track is Ragtop. Now, I love this track. Now, I believe it's on both Kentucky Headhunters album, and it's on Brother Phelps album. That's
right?
Yeah. So
that is correct.
So it's originally a Headhunters track. Is that correct?
Yes, originally Headhunter track, a song that Ricky had started, and I helped him finish it, and brought it to the band when we was starting to do the original stuff, original songs, writing original songs for the first album. And so it was one of those, and one of them that I had a little bigger hand in, I guess, in the writing. So and it's a good boogie, it's got a good boogie feel to it. So it also became it was a East Coast regional commercial for BMW, which came out of the clear blue. We didn't know that happened. That was way back when either. So that's cool, man.
That's cool. So who predominantly wrote that track then? Was it just?
It was me and my brother. Me and my brother. He had the feel and a verse, and then I added the next verse, and I guess kind of the harmony on this is, you always have influence. You always borrow from the best here and there, and you combine it and make it something your own. Now the harmony I chose for this came from "I Feel Free" by Eric Clapton. Oh, yeah, that's really, when you hear it, you hear their harmony thing, you hear what we did with ours. It's different. Obviously, it's somewhat different, but it's that approach. So
that's cool. So was it a conscious idea to take it to the Brother Phelps project as well?
Well, since it's one that we had written ourselves, we just thought, let's do it again in this version and see what happens. And we had Big Al from NRBQ come in and play on it, and he's such just out there, he'll almost break a neck playing the thing, playing his telly. So we wanted to hear what he would do with it, which was really cool. And he did a great job too. Kind of turned it, into its own thing as well.
It's a great track. So let's have a listen and play it.
Right on.
Great. Then that's a great track, right? I love that. That's a good song.
Love it, love it, love it.
Great song. A great song. So after a period of time, obviously Ricky decided to leave the Headhunters. How did you feel about it? Did you know it was coming, or had he spoke to you about it beforehand?
Well, we had been so just after Picking on Nashville took off, and I mean it took off like a rocket ship. You know, it wasn't. We didn't expect it. The label didn't expect it. But it happened, you know. People gravitated to it, started buying it, and you know, it went gold in record time, and platinum in record time, and won us a Grammy and CMA awards. It was it was crazy. It was exciting, but it was crazy, and we were incredibly busy, and we were being pulled in a lot of different directions. And you know, as a band, it's always a marriage. You know, it's a marriage, and we tried to approach this equally, as opposed to one person, you know, kind of telling everybody else what to do. So there's obviously different ideas on certain things. We almost always came together. Well, we did. We always would, even if we disagreed, we'd come together, get past an obstacle, move on, you know, make it stronger, make it better. But they kept coming at us, you know. And I think at one point it was a little overwhelming for Ricky. We were traveling a bunch, and he wanted to take a break, basically. So it really came down to he wanted to try to take a good break, and we had a lot of dates for a good amount of money, you know, and so we had to kind of get across that bridge, and there's an agreement to it. But then, you know, one little thing, like the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, happened, and he decided, you know what, I just need to take a break and leave, you know. And it was hard. It was a hard decision, because I really kind of was responsible for bringing him in, but I had my other music brothers that had formed this band, and you know, we'd accomplished something that we were very proud of. And
sure.
But with him leaving, he said, either, you know, if you want to do something together, we'll do it, you know, otherwise, you know, rock on. So Blood, you know, my brother, he's my blood. So I went with him and left the band, and it was devastating to me. I mean, it was hard, but
sure.
out of it, we, you know, Ricky and I were able to do something focused just together. The Headhunters replaced us with another long old-time friend of theirs, Mark Orr, on vocals. Anthony came back, so they had a period of 2 albums that was something unique that they got to do, and something Ricky got to do. You know, the Doug Phelps thing started off with a bang, had a top 5 record. Then things started. Next one didn't go as high, and the next one didn't go as high, and you know, it's just a part of the business. So after the second album of Doug Phelps thing, Ricky said, I just need to get out of it, take a break. And so it just, you know, timing is amazing sometimes. It just so happened, Richard called me in July of '95 and said, hey, let's talk. Mark's getting off the road, and you know, let's talk about maybe getting back together. And I already it happened at that time, and I said, I'm ready. I'm back. So I rejoined him in July of '95. Ricky, we all came up, we all met, we kind of got through all the differences of opinion, and you know, everything went down, and hugged each other's neck, and Ricky kind of rode off in the sunset doing his own thing, and to this day still doing his own thing. And I rejoined the Headhunters and kind of took over the majority of the vocal. Now Richard sings a lot these days. We go back and forth quite a bit on our latter recordings, but I'm still doing, I guess, the bulk of the lead vocal. I sound enough like Ricky to our voices are similar. I can cover the old stuff and it still sounds, you know, right. And then we've went into many other areas. You know, we've expanded our musical repertoire with obviously getting to do the Johnny Johnson albums, Chuck Berry's original piano player, and all that stuff. So, man, you know, I hated that it happened when it happened, but there were so many positive, good things that came out of it. In the long run, you got to look back on it and, you know, look at it that way.
Sure. The Brother Phelps thing, I think that's where we used to get music television over here. We used to be able to see it live back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And I first saw, the first thing I ever saw you guys do was, it was a Brother Phelps video, and it was Were You Really Living?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Blew me away. Great track. And in fact, I was in a band myself at the time. We covered that.
Oh, cool.
We loved it. And then I
Yeah.
saw you do the next one out was Anyway the Wind Blows. Now
Yes.
that is a phenomenal track. I personally I think that's better than JJ Cale. It's an amazing version. I really do like it.
Well, thank you. That's a high compliment there because I love JJ. Love him.
JJ Cale's a legend. There's something about your version that just has a bit more drive, and I really like that. And the fact you've got Kenny Aronoff on drums. I'm a drummer. He's my idol. You know, it's phenomenal. It's a great track. But how was the whole project for you and your brother? Was it a really enjoyable project?
It was enjoyable. It was different for us at that time. So, you know, a new adventure, I guess you could say, a new experience. And, but we enjoyed it. We got to get some of our musical heroes in there to play on our tracks as well. So that was cool. And, it was a great experience. It was still hard for me because I missed the band element. That's what I always wanted. I missed it. So, but you know, like I said, I think back on it now, and I have such fond, you know, positive memories of it, and very, you know, yes, enjoyed it. It was just a unique experience for us.
Would you two do it again if there was a possibility of doing it?
Well, I would never. I will never say never, because when you do that, you know how that goes, right?
Yeah. Right.
I don't foresee it. I don't foresee it ever happening. But what Ricky and I have done, is he's had some songs that needed to be finished or something, and he's approached me. We've done some little side projects that ended up in a little independent movie, and I guess some of the solo stuff he was doing, I helped write or finish or sang on. So, I mean, we've still been able to do some of that kind of stuff together, but I don't foresee us ever doing, you know, a commercial type release again. But I'll never say never.
It'd be a great shame if you didn't. I'd like to see it happen personally, just from my point of view. I'd love to see it. It'd be great. So between, tell me a bit, what's it like being on the road with the Headhunters?
Well, it's family, you know, it's family. So most of the time we're just having a ball, and they're picking on each other and messing with each other. And it's to this day, you know, we're still spanking in our gang out there, you know, but with family, you know, comes disagreements, of course. So there's still, you know, it's not perfect harmony all the time, but we've done it so long and together. I mean, this is 35 years just for the Headhunters to be together. With my little, you know, break, but 35 years ago this past March. So, you know, there's occasional disagreement or whatever, but I guess we're kind of old enough now to figure out that we're going to work it out, you know, one way or the other. And it's very smooth these days. It really is. We've ironed out most of the wrinkles.
you had plenty of time on the road to do that.
Yes, I would. Well, and you know, and we like being on the road. We don't mind the travel. It's not Ricky really. Ricky loved performing, but he was not that into the travel, time and all that stuff that it took. So we, you know, at least we all kind of agree on that. It's okay. We love being home with family, you know, as well. But these days, our schedule, we stay busy, yes, but you know, we'll do less than 100 dates a year. So that puts us home more than, or at least equally to the amount of time that we're on the road between traveling and doing the show. So it's balanced pretty well that way.
That's pretty cool. Now, your second track, what have you chosen for your second track, Doug?
Well, now this is one that I did write. We jammed on this funny little Bo Diddley feel at the practice house way early before we even, you know, signed our deal or anything. This would have been 86 probably, I guess. And we had this Bo Diddley feel, and it was my daddy was a milkman. That's all we had. My daddy was a milkman. That was it. You know, but we had the feel. And then we kind of left it alone, and that kept rolling through my mind. I said, now that's a story right there, you know, that needs to be told. Or at least I kept hearing it in my head. And it took me, Greg and I were still out on the road with McDowell touring, you know, full time. And then we'd come off the road and get up to practice house and, you know, start jamming and playing and writing and whatever. But one night, 6 months later, I bet it was at least 6 months later, Greg and I are roommates out there. I wake up in the middle, he always had a guitar in the room. I wake up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the whole story was there. And I went into the bathroom and I wrote the rest of the lyrics and the story in 15 minutes. One of them, I guess I thought about it so long, it finally made sense to me. So that's since I've, you know, I guess maybe a bigger part of that one, that's why I chose it. And it here's a side note for you. It was not, we recorded 8 songs originally for Picking on Nashville when we was just doing it ourselves. After Harold Shedd signed us, they said, well, I need 2 more tracks. Y'all just go in and do what you do. Cause you know, we did all this on our own. We produced it and wrote it and sung it. It's self-contained band, you know? So Milkman was one of those, the 10th track. It was the last track on Picking on Nashville. And it was pretty heavy, you know, it's not what I don't think it'd be considered country, but we put it on the record. Harold was fine with it. He thought it was cool. New York, Polygram New York, unbeknownst to Harold, put it on a compilation disc with Bon Jovi and Kiss and all these, you know, everybody was just like a little track from everybody to send to radio stations. Well, lo and behold, there were big rock stations across the country that started playing it on their own. Nobody called them, nothing. They just started playing it, started getting requests for it. Next thing you know, which we didn't even know, it ends up at that time, Billboard magazine had a little top 20 chart for songs that are tracks that are getting significant airplay without it being an official single. Sure. And it debuted at number 19. Nobody even knew it until that happened. And when it happened, I mean, we had, even in Nashville, KDF, big rock station here at the time, they were playing its top 5 requested song. Dallas, Buffalo, New York, Chicago, Tucson, I mean, it was spreading like wildfire, and nobody was even doing anything about it. Harold found out about it, and they were already, you know, the beginnings of the Headhunters. We may have sold a lot of records, but country radio was not. They weren't ready for us, you know. Yeah. So we were all struggling to get country radio to play us, you know, play our songs. And then here we have this big rock track that's just making waves, and Harold and them thought, oh, that's going to just ruin everything. So they called up all the stations and said, you got to stop playing that song. Instead of going, hey, keep playing that song and let it just be a big old huge hit. You know, it'd been like a big crossover rock hit from a country band, you know. Yeah. So they killed it. They literally killed it. But it got enough airplay that it's still one of those songs we have to do in our shows to this day. So there's your little side story about Milkman.
That's a great show. That's a great story. Let's play the track.
Right on.
I see what you mean. That's a little heavier, right?
A little heavier, yeah, especially for the time. The time. Yeah.
Great stuff. Love that. Now we've come out of this lockdown and stuff like that. You're back on the road. How does it feel?
Wonderful. Oh, now the performing, the playing feels wonderful. The getting the business started again between the bus companies, between the booking agency, between the merchandising that I take care of for a band. I take care of all our merchandising. It's like everybody is. It's hard to get running, you know, get in gear again, get everything running smoothly, and the fact that everybody's on the road again at the same time. All the buses are gone. You're 3 or 4 weeks trying to get your merchandise printed, and you know it's really at the booking. There's been shows fall through the cracks, and with the booking, it's hard to get this thing back, you know, running smoothly again. But once we get to where we're going and we get on the stage, the crowds are wonderful. It's everybody's so glad to be able to come see live music again, and we're having a ball. We're having a great time playing.
Cool. I'm really pleased to hear that you're back on the road. It's great. Any chance you're going to be coming to the UK?
Always a chance of that. Of course, we this past year, obviously not. This year, we're focusing on finishing all the promotions and pictures and album cover artwork, and we got this recordings finished and mastered, and so they're done. Album comes out sometime in October, not a solid date just yet on it. And then we'll deal with promotions here, obviously, and that'll take us into next year. The earliest would be probably sometime in 2022, and probably latter, on into the latter part of the year. Nothing in the works just yet, but I want to come back over. So that's a unique experience for us as well. Man, audiences over there are so in tune with music. I think sometimes, of course, we love folks here in America. It's a big music country as well, but I think they're used to, okay, this is happening now. Now what's next? But over there, there's a little different approach to how people appreciate music, and it's noticeable. It's something we noticed, and we love being able to be over there these past 3 or 4 years that we finally got to come over.
Yeah, now I saw you. See, you came over and played Rambling Man Fair a few years back.
Yes.
Now, when I got my ticket and I discovered that you guys were playing, I was like, God, great stuff, fantastic. I spent all day down the front. I didn't disappear anywhere. Because I went to see you guys, and I waited so long, and I didn't know that you'd never been over here up to that point. That was probably one of your first over here.
Yes, it was. And well, we had opportunities. When picking on Nashville hit 89, there were already opportunities. We were scheduled. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits called in 90 or 91. I think it may have been 91. Called our office. Their management called our office and wanted us to open stadium dates with Dire Straits. Us, and Dire Straits. That was going to be the lineup. And we're talking stadium dates. You know how huge Dire Straits is overseas. Huge, massive. We got it worked out. We were going to do it. And then the Gulf War broke out. And that postponed everything. And the only reason it never worked out again, Richard he had a fear of flying. He would not fly. So we were going to have to get him on a boat to get him over. We had it worked out. Unfortunately, it didn't. Now, I look back on that and go, boy, what an opportunity we missed there to play in front of thousands of folks every night. We had a 3 or 4 weekend deal lined up. So we missed that one, and then any other opportunity that came up, we never could quite coordinate the amount of dates to do it and still be able to get Richard over on the boat and back. So here's the ticket. Here's the key. Blackstone Cherry, which is Richard's son's band. That they broke so huge overseas, and here Richard is. Boy, I'd love to see him. I'd love to see that success they're having over there, but he's afraid to fly, and we were busy enough that he never could work it out on the boat. He finally, they finally cornered him at the practice house one night and said, people ask about y'all all the time over there. Are you coming? Are you coming? So he said either, and we said, we're promoting y'all. See, either you're going to get on a plane or we're going to stop talking about you and just say, nope, they're never coming. So that inspired Richard to at credit to him, he had a true, honest fear of flying. And his brother-in-law at the time, it was doctor, gave him a little happy pill. He got on the plane, had him a few beers, and by the middle of the flight, he was up walking up and down the rows, talking to people, and so he did fine. He did fine. So he finally got over that and realized that he could do it, and that's what finally brought us over there. And we did it three years, I guess, 3 different years. The last one that we did with Warner, Hodges, and Jason and Scorchers, and then Dan Baird from Georgia Thunder, Georgia Satellites, but him doing Homemade Sin, him doing his band. The 3 of us did it. That was some of the most fun we had over there going over. It was just a great time with those guys. Yeah,
it was good fun indeed.
Yeah.
Now, you touched on it briefly in a little bit of chat there. You got some great news coming out of the Headhunters headquarters about a brand new album. So how did that come about, and how's the writing gone for that?
Man, it was different. This was different for us as well this time around. Back in March, we said, well, those early dates this year kept moving. So we said, it's time. I could finally go across the line into Kentucky without being quarantined for, 14 days. So we just said, all right, let's book it and get it together. The guy we normally record with up there, David Barrett, he was in the process of moving his studio to a new building. And so he was just finishing up with that. Things weren't 100% ready when we went in there. Everything was done and ready, but the monitoring system, we had to figure all that out. So it took us a good day and a half to get everything coordinated where we felt comfortable again. But this time around, we did not go to the practice house and hammer out all the details. And, we normally we go to the practice house and rehearse those songs and, or finish writing them if we need to, whatever. We didn't really get to do that under these circumstances of COVID. So we just met in the studio and said, well, we'll just do it right there. We'll pound all these out, hammer them out right here in the studio. And we did. And everybody kind of brought, I brought 2 or 3, everybody brought, a few songs in and we just worked them up right there. And there was something cool about it because it was whatever we came up with that was the creative thing that clicked. It was really fresh. It was then and there. We didn't over rehearse it, obviously. And sometimes you can kind of kill, that initial creative spark that makes it kind of unique. And so it was fresh and it was a challenge, but that's how we approached it this time. And I tell you that sonically, the sounds, all the instrumentation, everything, I think some of the best sounding tracks we've ever recorded. And there's a variety. There's a track that might remind people of an early Picking on Nashville type of song. There's a little bit of everything on this one. It's very eclectic in that respect, but it's still Headhunters.
Sure. So is it all original material, or have you mixed it with a few covers as well?
It's all original except Cheap Tequila, which was originally recorded by hello, I'm going to go blank here. I'm getting old. Well, Johnny Winters recorded it second.
Sure.
Rock and roll hoochie coo.
I can't help you, Doug.
Well, anyway, people look up Cheap Tequila, they'll find the original.
Yeah.
They'll find Johnny Winters' version and then our version. And another unique thing about this record, everybody sang. We finally got Greg to sing an old original track that he wrote back in the 70s about Richard and Fred's grandmother, her grandma Effie. And she always packed. She always had a handgun in her. I mean, she was a character, let me tell you. And so Greg called her Shotgun Effie. And so we re-recorded that one, and I mean, put a blistering track on it. It's rocking. But he's singing that song. Fred's singing a couple on this one. So we look at it like this. We got Ringo singing a couple. We got George, which is Greg, singing on one. And then me and Richard trying to be John and Paul, doing our thing. I think I sang 6 of the tracks. Richard sang 2 or 3, and Fred a couple, and Greg one. So that kind of makes it a little bit different for the Headhunters as well.
Cool. So it sounds like you've had a blast making it. How long has it taken you from the start to the finish?
Well, that's the other part of it. See, when we went in well rehearsed, we'd have tracks done in a couple of days and then vocals done in a couple. I mean, we'd be in and out of there in at least tracking wise in a week, easily. This took portions of each week because we'd do 2 or 3 days and take a break and then come back and do 2 or 3 days. And so it was parts of about almost 4 weeks, but not 4 weeks solid, but 2 or 3 days each week kind of thing. So it was a little longer than what we're used to, but it's okay. It was cool to get to do it this way.
And we spoke at the moment. There's not a title for the album. Is that correct? Not
yet. We don't know. Another band that Richard has worked with and got him a deal. They're called the Georgia Thunderbolts. Really good young.
I've played them on my show. They're superb.
Yes, very good young Southern rock band. Southern rock band. TJ came in and played a little keyboard on for us on a couple tracks, and and he co-wrote a song or two with Richard and Fred while they were hanging out, in Kentucky. And he said, because we're all gray, beard, gray hair. He said, y'all just need to call it the Gray album. I said, well, I like that. That's pretty cool, but it probably won't be that. But we'll figure it out eventually.
Just figure it out. Well, we're going to play out. We're going to play out on the last track now. Our last track is one I love, and I'll play a lot on my show. It's your rendition, your cover of "Spirit in the Sky."
Yes.
Whose decision was it to cover that?
That one came out of the clear blue. We were opening up for Hank Jr. all of '90 and most of '91, and so it was sound check one day, and Greg, we already had kind of done that boogie type thing with Ragtop, obviously, and then that's sort of a ZZ Top kind of a boogie thing too. And Greg started, he just started it one day, and we went, oh, okay, and so we just played it in sound check. And the way we played the sound check is still, it's the way we recorded it. We didn't change nothing. The way we did it is the way we did it. And so when the second album came, the time to do the second Headhunter album, which was called Electric Barnyard, we said, well, we got to put that one on there, because we were known for doing a cover or two on each record and turning it into a Headhunter type song, And one really cool thing about it is Billboard magazine, or it may have been Rolling Stone, they interviewed one-hit wonders. They had a whole section of one-hit wonders some years ago, and they interviewed Norman Greenbaum and said, well, it's been covered so many times, what's your favorite version of it? And he said, Kentucky Headhunters. So that was a great honor for us, for the original guy to say, yeah, I did what they did to it, So, but yeah, that's another one of them we have to play, at every show.
Yeah, it's a great tune. I like it. I like
Yes.
the way you cover it is very, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you for being so open and honest. And it's been great. There's hope we can do it again at some point. Maybe with the rest of the band in tow, and we can have a proper chat. I wish you every success for the new album. Hope that goes well, and keep us informed about how it's doing.
Absolutely, we'll do it.
Thanks so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you for sparing me your time. I know you're a very, very, very busy man right now.
Well, I appreciate your time as well. We'll do it again at some point.
Absolutely. Doug, thanks a lot, and take care. Speak soon.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye.
You're listening to Country Rockin' with Jay Griffin.